All right, I'm going to try something out that's new. It's called landscape. Yesterday, we talked about how thoughts become programs, become habits, and become identities. And of course, I didn't go over how you can, what are some practical things you can do to begin to be able to program your mind and backwards engineer your mind. So I'm going to go over some things that you can use today, right now, to begin to program your mind so you can be the person you want to be and get rid of anxieties and things that hold you back, things that inhibit you from doing the things you want, connecting with the sorts of people you want, getting away from the kinds of environment that you don't want to be in. And so let's go over that really quickly. Thoughts that ruminate, that you continue to think about, become programs. And what in neuroscience is called a neurology, a spark of a thought begins to form a neural sheath. And then this sheath begins to become a program in your brain, and then it becomes unconscious, meaning it no longer lives in your cognitive frontal cortex. You no longer have to think about it consciously. It just becomes unconscious. It becomes habit. And then at the deepest level, it becomes an identity. It becomes who you are. So how do you become the type of person that you want to be instead of becoming the type of person based on your environment, based on how people have trained you, programmed you to be, based on how other companies program you to act and to be? So backwards engineer. I'll give you an example of that method when it comes to society. So companies spend billions of dollars using this method, backwards engineering, so they can program you to be able to do what they want to do rather than what you want to do, and you don't even know it's going on. So what's happening? Thoughts, sparks, become programs. So there's something called branding. Companies pay billions of dollars to get their brand out there. They have certain color schemes and certain trademarks and brands that stick to your mind. They have billboards everywhere. They have commercials on television. They're on the radio. They're on magazines. And what happens is that every time you see their brand, it becomes more and more of the thing that you think about. It now becomes programmed. It starts to develop a neural sheath. Enough times you see it, what happens is, what's the next step? The next step is it becomes a habit. The program now becomes a habit. It becomes unconscious. So when you're trying to make a decision as to what thing you want to buy the next time you have that problem, or what item you want to buy when you're hungry, you now have an unconscious response to think about that brand because it became a habit in your mind. The best brands out there, and I'll demonstrate this to you, the best brands out there have something called identity marketing. So what's the next step of habit? It's identity, right? Thoughts become programs, become habits, become identity. And when they tap into identity, here's how they tap into it. One of the top brands out there, Apple, Nike, Under Armour, right? What they do is they tap into identity. How do they tap into identity? They tap into identity by saying, Apple saying, we are the innovators. We are the crazy ones. And so now they tap into who you are. And I'll show you how you can reverse engineer that. Under Armour, The Rock right now has a campaign. It's something about being the hardest worker in the room. That's their identity. It's your identity that you are the hardest working person in the room, and that brand represents that identity. This is called identity marketing. Nike, just do it. And they're a brand of going for it. So you get the point, right? So how do you reverse engineer that so you can create for yourself the type of identity that you want for yourself? And utilizing this process, the thought, program, habit, identity. It's called affirmations. Affirmation means a positive comment about something. So create affirmations for yourself. And how do you create your affirmations? You create your affirmation. I'll show you how to create it, and I'll give you some examples, and I'll show you how to use the affirmation. So number one is how to create your affirmations. Your affirmations, find something you desire to have, be, and become. Find something you desire to have, be, and become. Find something you desire, you want to be, and you want to become, and create an affirmation from that. Or you could also find something that's inhibiting you from becoming that thing and writing a positive statement about that. So if you have a problem of, I have an anxiety every time I'm in public, write the affirmation. That's a story you have in your head, because the past only exists in your head. So it's only a reality in your head. It's only a story in your head. Once you train your thinking to build a habit and build an identity of the opposite thing, you'll start becoming that person. Because your brain, nothing exists outside of your brain. All experiences reside inside your brain. So the example was, you have a problem with having anxiety in public, so write the opposite affirmation. I am incredibly comfortable in public. I am incredibly social, and people are attracted to me, to my communication. That's one affirmation. You can have whatever affirmation you want. So I'll give you some examples of affirmations that'll tap into many different desires for different people. I am, and what you want to do is you want to begin with the term I am. Why? Or the two words, I am. Begin every affirmation with this. Here's why. It's because you're tapping into identity. You're bypassing thought, you're bypassing program, you're bypassing habits. You're going right into identity. You're programming your identity at the deepest level by saying the word I am. So, say it in the present tense. I'll give you some examples. I am comfortable speaking in front of groups, in front of one to many people, to large audiences. Speaking in public is one of the biggest fears for many of us. And speaking in public is nothing more. There's no difference between speaking in front of a few groups of people and speaking in public. There's no difference in the manner you speak. Maybe you want to be more efficient, you have a time constraint, but there's no difference between speaking. It's just now we have mics, so we don't even have to speak louder anymore. So it's just a story in our heads that's stopping us. I am comfortable speaking in front of groups. I am doing things in my business every day that is productive for my business. I am making progress in my goals daily. I am making daily progress with my goals. I am a powerful connector with people. I am a powerful communicator with people. I have meaningful relationships with people I communicate with. And my last example here is, I add value to people's lives. I add value to people's lives. I leave people better than when I found them. These are phenomenal affirmations. And so before I end this, how do you do your affirmations? What practical thing do you do? One way is to read it every day. Write it down and read it every day. And so the thought becomes program, becomes habits, until it becomes unconscious, until it becomes habit and becomes identity. The next powerful thing is you read it out loud. When you read it out loud, you're now using up more senses and taking in more of an experience in your mind. It becomes more real and concrete in your mind when you utilize more senses. So you read it out loud. The next powerful thing when you do affirmations is not only you do it often, but you attach emotion into the affirmation. So rather than reading it, I am comfortable speaking in front of groups. I am comfortable speaking in front of groups. I am comfortable speaking in front of groups. Attach emotion, because emotion is a driver for making things concrete in your mind. It makes thoughts more powerful. I'll give you an example. There are experiences in our lives where it happened 20 years ago, where something comes up and we know exactly where we were, we know the smell, we know how we felt, we know what we're looking at, we know exactly everything. And the reason why, it's because emotion was flooded into that experience, and it made that thought, that spark of neurology, very, very concrete. And that's how you utilize your emotion, attach emotion into the affirmation. So I would read that: I am comfortable speaking in front of groups. And you say it with concreteness. Say it with definitive statement. And that's my training for today. If you appreciated that video, that training, click the like button on this video. If you have any thoughts, I'd love for you to leave a comment and hear your thoughts on it. If you have any, you can also private message me. I get back to all my messages. And if you know anybody who could benefit from these thoughts and ideas, share this video with them. Thanks for paying attention. Talk to you on the next live.